We're in upstate New York with Volkswagen to drive the refreshed Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport.
Big changes under the hood. Oh boy.
Some pretty good power. Wow.
There's a lot of concern about the changes to the Atlas. We're seeing this trend in mid-size SUVs away from V6 or VR6 engines to what's under the hood of this thing, Andrea?
Gone is the VR6 and the old 2-liter turbocharged 4. Now we've got a revised 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with an 8-speed automatic transmission, 269 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque.
In the United States, it's front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive available. Think the GTI engine, same engine, but it's been tweaked and modified for an SUV application, more power and torque than that car. Right now, we're going to get into this Atlas. It comes nicely equipped. What are the key standard features?
The base trim comes with a 12-inch touchscreen, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a 10.25-inch digital driver display, a 6-speaker audio system, a wireless charger with 45-watt capability, heated and ventilated front seats, a power driver seat, manual passenger seat with height adjustment, leatherette upholstery, a heated steering wheel, power tailgate with easy open close, and IQ.Drive.
Oh, Andrea, they've got a new little nub shifter. Now, what can we put it in?
You got to put it in S for subscribe, and if you can hit that notification bell, you'll be notified when all of our videos drop, and then you can watch them.
And we do this, the couple car review, twice a week. The first one drops on Wednesday.
We put another one out on Saturday.
So make sure you like and subscribe, but also follow along on Instagram. It's Motormouth_Andrea to see what's up behind the scenes. For me, it's Motormouth_Auto, and the links are below the like button.
So if you compare this to the old VR6, it does have less horsepower, but 7 pound-feet of torque extra.
Peak torque is at just 1,600 RPM, so that's just above idle. So you've got a lot of torque available, and it runs on
regular gas. And on top of that, 28% higher peak torque. And 0 to 60 times are 0.8 seconds faster.
So almost a full second faster. That's pretty good. Okay, so everybody wants to know, wait a second, am I going to buy one of the biggest 3-row SUVs in the marketplace with a turbo 4-cylinder? Let's just back up a little bit. Toyota has just introduced the Grande Highlander. It also comes with a turbo 4-cylinder engine. So this is the trend in the industry because of emissions and also fuel economy regulations. They're mostly going to go. There are a few outliers still, but this is the trend. A lot of the pressure goes onto the transmission, and we have to say, in the time we've been driving this, it's doing a really good job of keeping the engine in the right gear for the task at hand, either acceleration or just cruising along.
And it's interesting because the CX-90 has an inline 6, and on paper you think to yourself, oh, it's an inline 6, that's the way to go. But what we have found with the CX-90 is that the transmission is lazy. That is not the case in this. Quite good.
So it's all down to the calibration of the transmission, and when you have it in the sport mode, it does change the gears more often, but it's keeping the engine in the power band. When you take it out of sport, it relaxes more.
So we're in comfort mode right now, but when you put it in sport mode, here we go, and I'm going to accelerate quickly, it has a little bit of a growl
I do notice, like wide open throttle, that's kind of satisfying. But just driving it on and off throttle, it gets a little bit drony. In the second half of the video, for Questions, Coffee, and Cars, we're driving the Cross Sport. So stick around for that.
And I'm curious about that. Once we get into the Cross Sport, is it going to feel sportier than this? Because it is a little bit smaller. It doesn't have a third row, so we will be curious to check that out and how the engine is in a smaller vehicle. Now, I am finding the steering to be quite light, which is exactly like the previous model. There's been no change at all to the suspension, so anybody who has an Atlas now and wants to upgrade, you'll find it to be exactly the same.
On the outside, Andrea, I just want to say Ford called and they want their grille back and they want their lights back. Doesn't it look a bit Ford from the front?
I don't know. To me, it looks like an Atlas. I think that they have tweaked it. Basically, Volkswagen says, why fix what already works? So what they've done is they've made the grille a little bit bigger. They've got stacked LED headlamps now. And I think overall they did a nice job on it. It still looks boxy. It still looks rugged, just like the previous model.
All right, some nice touches though. So the VW in the front is illuminated with a light bar that goes from side to side. And the back is illuminated with the tail lamps at the back that are now connected. And there are many kind of looks, and there's a brand new trim as well, right?
Yeah, there's the Peak Edition, and I think it looks great. It's got an exclusive avocado green color. The interior also gets an avocado and gray interior with orange stitching. You've got silver and black cladding and also some black accents to the exterior. I really like it, and honestly, I'm thinking that that is the one that I would buy.
And the one thing about that model is you get a smaller wheel with a bigger all-terrain tire, which is a trend we're seeing across the industry, is to do at least one trim that has kind of more of that rugged look. However, that's only on the regular Atlas. It is not available on the Cross Sport.
Now those are 18-inch wheels. Unfortunately, we don't get to drive the Peak Edition today to see kind of what the different driving dynamics would be. That model isn't in production yet. Of course, we've got some pictures of it, and the green looks fantastic. One of my biggest complaints about the interior was it felt cheap. There was a lot of hard plastic in here. Volkswagen has taken the time to change that. We're in the top trim right now, but I was in a lower trim yesterday, and I've got to tell you, there is a lot of soft touch materials, and one thing that I'm really impressed with is that they carried it right through to the second row, which you don't always see very often.
Okay, the nice thing is they have a pad that runs across the dashboard that's soft touch materials, and also in the tunnel here, the center console, soft touch and nice stitching on the side panels. And now because they have a digital shifter, they're able to remove the linkage and open up the storage space underneath. It's a very useful interior cabin.
Another one of my complaints with the old Atlas is that it came standard with a 6.5-inch touchscreen, and there was an available 8-inch touchscreen. Once again, they changed that. Now it comes standard with a 12-inch touchscreen. And that's one thing I like about this model, is all of the standard features that we went through at the beginning. It's really impressive.
Okay, so we've seen this dash used for the most part in other Volkswagen vehicles, and not to claim, to be honest with you. So they don't have a physical volume knob. They've got the haptic feedback for the HVAC controls and for the volume on the head unit. There is a quick key underneath for things like driver assistance, the modes for the driving modes, which is definitely welcome. But there's a big camp of people don't like this Volkswagen direction. Everybody that has used one of these for time says you do get used to it though.
I gotta be honest with you, I don't like it, but we ordered a GTI, so guess what? We better get used to it.
Yeah, it's funny because I said to Andrea, oh good, we get to practice what it's going to be like. The good news is the steering wheel on this is not the same as the GTI that has the haptic buttons. This has real buttons. So for the driver anyway, there's some nice sort of tactile keys. For the passenger, you have to still use the swipey stuff.
Now this is a 3-row SUV, so what's the passenger configurations like? Good news is that a bench seat is available on every trim, including this top trim. And if you want captain's chairs, they are available, $700 in Canada and $695 in the US.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you. You know what? I'm trying to think of another brand that does that.
Honda Pilot.
Honda Pilot's the only one that does that. So well done, Volkswagen, for giving people the option of a bench seat. The only thing is, it isn't an 8-passenger, even though it's one of the biggest in the class. It's just a 7-passenger, but I'll take that trade-off all day long.
In Canada, there are less trims available than in the US. So let's start with the Peak Edition. It adds the 30-color ambient lighting, and the panoramic sunroof is available on that trim. The Highline trim comes standard with the panoramic sunroof, leather trim seats, the 10-speaker Harman Kardon sound system, navigation, driver seat memory, that's where you're going to find your power passenger seat, and heated rear seats. The top exec line R-line trim adds a 360 camera and the head-up display. And guess where that head-up display comes from? The Golf R and the GTI models.
in the United States, there's way more trims to choose from. We think that the SEL model has the nice features similar to what we get in the Canadian Highline trim. It also adds the head-up display and the 30 color ambient lighting. The trim is missing Harman Kardon sound system and a 360 camera, which are available on the top trim, however. Now, one of the big reasons you buy this is because of the space. Here's me getting in the second row. This thing is enormous. A huge amount of legroom and headroom. Of course, the seats slide forward and aft to make room in the third row.
Comparing the Atlas to the Honda Pilot and the Toyota Grand Highlander, the Atlas offers 41.7 inches of front row legroom, which is the same as the Grand Highlander, but a little more than the Pilot. Second row legroom at 37.6 inches is very spacious, but actually falls short to these competitors. It is about 2 inches less than the Toyota and over 3 inches less than the Pilot.
But then you slide that second row forward and will you look at that? There is a lot of room in the third row. Adults can sit back there. It's not just for little kids.
That's exactly where the Atlas shines. At 33.7 inches of space in that third row, it's about the same as the Grand Highlander and an inch more than the Pilot.
And then you lift the power liftgate at the back, and this has a big cargo space even when the third row is up. And yes, there's even more storage under the floor.
Cargo space behind the third row at 20.6 cubic feet and overall cargo space at 96.8 cubic feet is great. It's the same as the Grand Highlander, but the Atlas offers more space than the Pilot.
Well, look what we remembered. Java.
Time now for questions, coffee, and cars.
Before we do it, I just want to say we're now in the cross sport. Your questions from Instagram.
I have a 2018 with the VR6. It's been great. Not sure I would upgrade because of the engine change. Do you notice much difference to the outgoing powertrain? Also, do the cooled seats work? They are a waste of time in my 2018.
All right, very hot and humid day here today.
Yeah.
And I hate cooled seats on my backside. Andrea, however, likes it. You tried it. What did you think?
Cold. In fact, I needed to shut them off because I got a bit of a chill. I do run cold though.
I would say your backside's hot myself, but next question.
No, the powertrain.
Oh, the powertrain.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it worth the upgrade? Well, it's different, right? Like you've got an engine that's been around for 30 years that is a proven powertrain and loves the gasoline. So you're getting an efficiency bump in this and a power bump in this. However, the long-term durability of the engine is still a question mark, but I think you're probably okay to get this.
Look, I'm fine with it. I don't have a problem. I know there are people who are gonna miss the VR6 for sure. This has enough power. I'm not concerned about that. Lots of passing power. Just like Toyota went with a turbocharged 4-cylinder in their Highlander, I don't have a problem with that one either. I really like that Peak Edition. Does it come with extra protection underneath? Also, does it have different drive modes available? And lastly, are the tailpipes still a decoration?
Okay. Basically, the way to answer all of those questions is it's all decorative, right? The tailpipes on the back are decorative, and the Peak Edition is an appearance package only.
Yeah, and just like the R-Line design, it just gives it a sportier look. So you get the Peak Edition badging, and then you get the cool avocado green and the cool avocado green
You're hung up on the avocado green. Listen, this is what people think they're buying when they're buying an SUV.
Yeah.
Something that has a more rugged off-roady, and it's got that in vibe only.
Do the updates to the Atlas close the gap much with the Audi Q7 from a value proposition to make a Q7 shopper look more closely at the Atlas? Absolutely. I think if you don't want to spend as much money on a Q7, you're going to be pretty happy with the improvements to the fit and finish in this. I wouldn't recommend the previous model against the Q7, but I will say that this is a huge improvement.
Okay, so the Q7 also has, shocker, a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder as its base engine. And we don't hear a lot of outcry about that. Now, they do, of course, have the 6-cylinder turbo. But the thing is, people, I'm convinced of this, buy in silos, right? So there are people that buy, Asian import brands like Toyotas and Hondas, for example, and that's kind of all they buy. But there's another group of people that want to have a German vehicle experience. And for non-luxury, This is it.
Yeah.
So you think of somebody that has the means maybe to go and buy a Q7 or a GLE or an X5, but they think, you know what, I can save some money and get a similar experience. That's why the top model sells so well.
And also you have to remember, this is a family hauler. Some people don't want to spend a ton on a family hauler. They just want it to be practical and versatile. And that's why the Atlas is so popular. It's the #1 seller for Volkswagen.
You take that savings and you put it towards a new 911.
Yeah.
There you go.
Get something fun on the side. That's what I always say, right?
And now it's time for your hot topic. What's this one, Andrea?
No hybrid, PHEV variant. Is it just me, or does this whole package feel dated because of the motor? 12 liters per 100 kilometers can't be acceptable in 2023 unless this is a towing capacity monster. Even then, I'd be hard pressed not to choose a more fuel efficient option.
So if you follow VW, you know they're marching towards electrification. They have the ID.4, which is their compact electric utility. They have the ID. Buzz minivan that's coming, or bigger than a minivan that's coming next year.
Yeah.
And there is room for a vehicle of this size to be fully EV within the next, say, 5 to 7 years. But right now, they've gone for a more efficient Turbo 4, but there might be some wiggle room in there.
Yeah, well, we asked a top executive with Volkswagen. I said, you know, no plug-in hybrids, no hybrids available. I think that that's a miss by Volkswagen. And he said, you know, it could be, and they're doing more research into it. So it is possible that a plug-in hybrid might come to North America. It is a miss from Volkswagen because some people just don't have the infrastructure in place to take on a pure EV.
So I think it's not going to be this. I think it's going to be Tiguan, because there is a plug-in hybrid already of Tiguan in Europe, and I think that would be an easy vehicle to bring over, but there you go. Now the other thing is, even with the old inefficient VR6, this is one of the top sellers. So you might not know, Atlas is a monster in terms of sales. So you have the domestic brands like the Ford Explorer. They have a lot of fleet sales. They sell a lot of those.
Yeah.
The best-selling import brand is Highlander. And then just behind that is this, beating the Telluride, the Palisade, and all other import brands for large 3-row SUVs.
And Volkswagen tells us that the demographic for the Atlas is about 43 years old. They're a little bit wealthier. Their household income is about $159,000 Canadian, and 70% are new to the Volkswagen brand. And guess what sells? More sales from this top trim.
Yeah, it's funny that 50% are the most expensive model, which lets you know they could have bought something more expensive and they decided to buy this. So what are the official numbers for what's under the hood, the towing capacity, and more with our vital stats?
Let's start with pricing. In Canada, the Atlas starts at just under $50,000 Canadian, and the top trim is just under $60,000 Canadian. The Atlas Cross Sport is $1,100 Canadian less than the Atlas. In the US, the base all-wheel drive model starts at just over $39,500, and the top trim is just under $52,500. The Atlas Cross Sport all-wheel drive model starts at just over $38,500, and the top trim is just under $51,500.
Here's the fuel economy for this new 2-liter engine. 12.2 liters per 100 kilometers in the city, 9.2 on the highway. That's 19 miles per gallon city, 26 miles per gallon highway. This is rated to tow 5,000 pounds. And the warranty is 4 years, 80,000 kilometers or 50,000 miles. Now, before we get to the comparison, what else you can buy, we should mention we are driving the Cross Sport.
Yeah, and one thing about this Cross Sport, it's no different than the previous model that we drove. It does have a little bit more of a sportier feel than the Atlas.
And you get an enormous cargo area. So basically the Cross Sport is the same wheelbase as the Atlas.
Yeah.
You take out the third row, you make the cargo area enormous, and that appeals to people. Same thing. They maybe could buy an X5, but they get that instead because they want to save some money. All right, speaking about large 3-row SUVs, what else can you pick?
For your consideration, 4 vehicles for you to consider.
Up first is a Toyota Grand Highlander with a 2.4-liter turbocharged four-cylinder, 265 horsepower, and a starting price just over $53,500.
The Honda Pilot with a 3.5-liter V6, 285 horsepower, and a starting price almost $53,000.
The Chevrolet Traverse with a 3.6-liter V6, 310 horsepower, and a starting price just over $45,000.
The Kia Telluride with a 3.8-liter V6, 291 horsepower, and a starting price almost $53,000.
So there are 4 large 3-row SUVs for you to consider.
Lightning round, 2 things we like, 2 things we like to see improved.
I love all the standard features that VW is offering on this Atlas.
Much better interior.
The only thing I'd like to see is a little less shiny black plastic at the center console.
Okay, I like the interface, but it would be even better with a volume knob.
Volkswagen, you listened to all of our complaints and you fixed the Atlas. Well done.
It's amazing that the bestseller is the most expensive one.